Welcome back. On today's episode, I'll discuss why I left Islam. My earliest memory of religion comes in colors and sounds, not words. I remember Eid. I remember the bright, glassy bangles that glittered like something from a Bollywood film. I remember my mother mixing henna, carefully dipping a small stick that resembled a toothpick into the wet paste, drawing delicate flowers on our tiny hands and feet. She made sure we were dressed beautiful little girls, even after our father passed. That's what Eid was to me. Bangles, henna, dresses, not mosques, not prayers, not sermons, just colors and touch. But if I am honest, I don't recall ever being fully conscious. I believe with my whole heart that after being assaulted by the teenager when I was 6, my soul retreated into a cage. My body grew, my days passed, but something inside of me stayed locked away. When I turned 26, it felt like I woke up for the first time. Everything before then feels blurred, like a dream I only half lived. My next memories of Islam are of the Islamic schools. Supposedly, when my father was alive, my sister and I were sent to learn Arabic and Quran. After he died, my mother tried to keep that path alive. She remarried a man who taught Islamic classes, and later, when we moved within the refugee camp, me and my older sister continued to study. I remember us reaching Surah Yasin. I remember trying to memorize word by word. I also remember the beatings. The disturbing assaults beyond Islamic school were so harsh that even today I can say with certainty, they broke something within us. They took not only our innocence, but our ability to hold knowledge. We cannot recite Yasin anymore. We cannot write the Arabic we once learned. That violence, amongst other things, stripped us bare. We became children who could only function on orders, without a sense of self. Why didn't we speak up about the assaults and the harm we endured? Because we had no words, no vocabulary for the pain. Even now, I won't give every detail. But what I will tell you is simple. We endured things children should never have to endure. Eventually, we stopped going to Islamic classes. Part of it was money. Part of it was my mother's shock at what we told her, that the teachers said you could marry your uncle. She was furious. Maybe looking back, it was a mistranslation. Maybe they meant stepfather. But it didn't matter. It was still disgusting. And after that, I don't recall going back. I also remember how the kids who spoke Mai excelled in those schools, because the teachers spoke their language. My siblings and I were already outsiders, already fractured. Fast forward to adolescence. Rebellion. By then I wasn't thinking about Islam at all. My head was consumed by what people said about me, by the shame I carried, by the sense that I was never normal enough to belong. I lived in a constant stage of self-judgment. Whatever I heard about me, I believed. I was different, I was uncomfortable, but I had no words to explain it. In middle school, I told a counselor I was being bullied. When she asked questions, I snapped, "What's the point of telling you? You get paid for this. You don't know how it feels because you're not me." Maybe she could have helped me, but I didn't trust her. She wasn't me, so she couldn't know my pain or the cultural differences shaping it. By high school, I was walking home every day, and one day I told myself, "Read the Quran." So I did. I read it from front to back in English translation. I was 14 years old, carrying a book I didn't understand. To me, it was just words, strange rhymes, stories that felt disconnected. I wanted to understand, but couldn't. Only one story stayed with me, the story of the elephant. I couldn't explain why, but it kept replaying in my head. I loved education, but trauma kept me from absorbing. I prayed because it was routine, not because I understood what it meant. I wore the hijab, the abaya, Somali dresses, because it was culture, not because I knew the raw meaning of being Muslim. And beneath it all, darkness was settling. I was assaulted again in those years. I don't even remember when exactly. I only know something inside me turned off. I carried self-hatred like a cloak. I knew nobody liked me. I knew I wasn't pretty enough. I lived with that truth silently. One dream stands out from that era. My entire family was murdered. I was the last one alive, laid out on a table. They were sawing my head off. I kept repeating my shahada until I woke up. I told my mom. She said it was Allah testing my faith, but in waking life I was having blackouts. Whenever I tried to pray, my body would grow unbearably heavy, my knees weak, my chest heavy. Sometimes I would be consistent with prayer, and then the following week I would fall terribly ill, and when I stopped praying altogether, I felt better. At home, my mother and her husband were constant sources of pain. The environment was unhealthy. I was a burden to my family, and I began to believe I was a burden to Allah too. One morning for Fajr, around 18 or 19 years old, I couldn't take it anymore. I prayed, and I broke. I cried and told Allah, "It's too hard to be Muslim. I can't keep up. I'm not good enough for you. I'm not good enough for my mom. I don't want to believe anymore. Please, just let me go." And in that very moment, as soon as I lifted my right foot off the prayer mat, the heaviness vanished. My shoulders lightened. My heart cleared. My mind was sharp. I stood there in awe, saying to myself, "I feel better." He let me go. For a week, I walked lighter than I ever had. I thought I had been freed. But by the second week, emptiness crept in. Not sadness, not happiness, just hollow, a void inside me. By the third week, I began to hear a voice, a woman's voice, soft but startling. It whispered, "Wake up." It came at random moments, when I was alert, when I least expected it. Wake up, again and again. It terrified me. I panicked. I went to a family friend, a man well versed in Islam. I confessed everything. I told him about my prayer, how Allah took my faith, how I felt like an empty vessel. I told him about the voice that haunted me, and I said, "I want to be Muslim again. I want to take my shahada in front of you as witness." He agreed. I took my shahada again, but nothing changed. I was still empty. And so the sorrow grew. I wanted so badly to believe again. I regretted asking Allah to let me go. I wanted even a spark of faith to return. But it was gone, and I wept over it. Then one day, I lay in bed with headphones on, wishing for Allah to come back to me. A song came on, "He Lives in You," from The Lion King. At first I didn't pay attention, but then the lyrics pierced me. Night and the spirit of life, calling, and a voice, with the fear of a child, answers, "Wait, there's no mountain too great. Hear the words and have faith. He lives in you, he lives in me. He watches over everything we see, into the water, into the truth. In your reflection, he lives in you." I wasn't just hearing a song, I was being spoken to. Every lyric wrapped around me like revelation. He lives in me. He is the truth. He is everywhere. My autistic brain, my caged soul, finally received a spark. I cried, because for the first time I understood. For the first time I believed. And little did I know that Allah was going to put me through so many adversities to make me fall onto my knees in submission, that indeed He is Allah, the One, the Only, the Irresistible. A little reflection on my past. The story of the elephant has been circling me since I was 14. Back then, I didn't know the meaning, but maybe that was the point. Maybe Allah let it sit in my memory because it was a foreshadowing of everything I would live through. For me, it was always about divine protection. I was a powerless child, my innocence stolen, my voice muted, my knowledge broken by beatings. Yet even then, Allah was already whispering, "Just as I protected my house, I will protect the truth inside you, no matter who tries to destroy it." I didn't see it then, but I feel it now. I've always stood on the outside looking in. Abraha came with an army, with culture, with power, with something big and flashy, and Allah crushed it all with tiny birds carrying small stones. That story feels like me. I never fit into the big systems. Not schools, not counselors, not communities, not even the Islamic institutions that were supposed to teach me. But Allah was foreshadowing my mission. My strength was never supposed to come from fitting in. It was supposed to come from the unexpected weapons He placed inside me. My voice, my story, my truth. The year of the elephant was the same year the Prophet, peace be upon him, was born. Allah destroyed the army so the Kaaba would be preserved for His mission. When I was 14, I didn't know what I was holding on to. I was lost, hurting, and not awake yet. But now I see it. Allah planted this story in my memory as a marker. My mission was always going to be tied to protection, truth, and rebirth. I didn't understand the story back then, but my soul refused to let it go. And now I know why. My whole life has been elephants and birds. I have faced armies of abuse, betrayal, and injustice. And yet, again and again, Allah has sent me His birds, small signs, whispers, dreams, verses, to protect me. He never needed me to be the strongest in a worldly sense. He only needed me to remember, to testify, to carry the truth He already wrote inside me.